Welcome back to my kitchen. I'm just measuring out these tamarind pods to make the classic agua de tamarindo that you find all over Mexico. And I need 8 ounces of them, so I weighed that out there. These are the tamarind pods that you'd find in any Mexican grocery store, really. You usually find them in the produce section of the store. And I'm going to show you how to work with them to get the absolute best flavor. But there's a few steps that you have to take to turn those into that classic flavor. But at the end of this video, I'll also show you how to use this concentrate that you could find at a lot of Asian stores, or in some of the Asian stores, Indian stores. You'll find this kind of brick of tamarind pulp. So I'll talk to you more about how to do that. But let's work with the real thing, with the tamarind pods. So they've got this barky exterior on them, and you want to crush them, crack them like that to break that exterior, that barky exterior off of them. And you want to get most all of it. We're going to strain this, so if some of it sticks on there, it's not a big deal. But once you get most of that off, and if they're very fresh tamarind pods, you will find that the barky stuff will stick more on them. The older and drier they are, the less flavorful, but also easier to peel. Second thing after you get that barky exterior off of them is to start at the stem end, where you can see all of these little pieces. They look like veins that go down on the side of it. You pull all of those off, and then once we get all of these done, peeled like that, I'm going to put them into hot water and let them soak. But I've got to finish this task before I do that. All cleaned and ready to go into this pot of barely simmering water. I'm going to let them just simmer for a couple minutes and then turn it off and let them sit there for a couple of hours until all of that sticky substance around the seeds that are embedded in the inside all starts to get really soft. And then I'll show you what you do with that. But you need to let them sit till they're at room temperature and have softened up a couple of hours. You can see how these have plumped up a lot. So what I do is this. I just take my hands into the pot because it's cooled off now and everything. And I just work it for a little while until I'm sure that the pulp has completely dislodged from all of the seeds. Then we'll strain this. I went and rinsed my hands off after all of that. Our next step here is to strain this, just not through a really fine mesh strainer, just an ordinary strainer. And I'm going to scrape all of it. And you'll notice that the water now looks like a kind of like a puree, if you will, of that beautiful tamarind. Okay, so that's all in there. And then use your spatula to work it all through this medium mesh sieve. Okay, if working with tamarind pods is not exactly going to be your thing, you have 3 other options. You could go into your Mexican grocery store and go into the freezer section, and there you're likely to find tamarind pulp in the freezer section, and you would use that just like the tamarind pulp that I made. Or you go to an Asian market and you could find this tamarind concentrate, and to tell you the truth, it's just about the same as the tamarind pulp that I made. So if you need 2 cups of that tamarind pulp, you work with 2 cups of this one as well. Now that's not the case for this very super concentrated brick of tamarind. For this one, this is a 14-ounce brick, and you would cut this into quarters. Take 1/4 of that, put it into a blender with about a couple cups of water, blend that up, and then you're going to have about the same consistency and tanginess that you would have from fresh-made tamarind pulp. Now, back to the recipe. Okay, I don't think you can get any more out of this. I have been working it back and forth for a while. Make sure that you always go over the bottom of your strainer to get everything off of there. I think it looks sort of like that, all those seeds, and it's going to have a little bit of the pulp on it there. Okay, so now we just need to see where we are in terms of quantity. It should be about 2 cups or so, but if it's not all the way up to 2 cups, looks like I've got kind of like about 1.5 cups here. So I am going to go to the sink and just fill it up with that extra 1/2 cup of water so that we've got that, and then put all of that into this blender jar. Now, if I wanted to add more water to it at this point and some sugar, I would have the classic agua de tamarindo, that what you find all over Mexico as one of the classic aguas frescas. But I'm going to do a little something different with it because here in Chicago, it is apple cider season, and with a good apple cider from a local, one of our local farms here, I can make this into a tamarind apple agua fresca that is absolutely delicious. So I'm going to add to this 3.5 cups of this beautiful apple cider that we have here. And then I'm going to blend everything together. I'm doing this in the blender just because it makes the whole task go easy, but you could actually just whisk it together if you wanted to. But I'm going to turn this on and just let it all kind of come together. One of the cool things is that when you blend tamarind and apple cider, it gets this very beautifully foamy top on it. Okay, so if you are going to just serve this as an agua fresca, as a tamarind apple cider agua fresca, I would highly recommend serving it over ice, just like that, okay? But if you want to turn this into a cocktail, then here is my idea, to put about 2/3 of the way up ice, and then just cover it with this agua fresca. And then I'm going to measure in here, it could be 1.5 to 2 ounces of, I would say a reposado or añejo tequila because of the dark flavors of the tamarind. So I'll dump that in there. And then I'm going to top this guy off with a little ginger beer. And the spiciness of the ginger beer is so delicious. Then give it just a gentle stir like that. And you've got 2 different ways to serve this apple cider and tamarind agua fresca. Cheers.